Hello everybody, Nick Ranks for Kids here once again. This time coming at you with a semi-competitive deck, which, as you may have seen from the title, is a Dark Magician Warrior deck, with Dark Magician and Skilled Dark Magician as the linchpins that hold this deck together. I have always wanted to make a deck that in some way summons Dark Magician but isn't, completely jank. Because even though I like jank, I like to see how much you can push a card to actually be playable. And I think this is the closest I've gotten to that goal so far. I think that there's definitely improvements that can be made. This is kind of just the second version of the deck that I've built, but let me know what you guys think as I go through this deck for you and tell you about the choices. For the most part, it's kind of like a standard warrior deck, but you'll be able to see the obvious differences. Of course, starting out, we do have 3 skilled Dark Magician, who was 1900, 1700, level 4 Dark, and each time a spell is activated, you place a spell counter on it, up to 3, and you contribute this card with 3 spell counters to special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand, deck, or graveyard. It's important to remember it can summon from the deck or graveyard, so even if you have to ditch your Dark Magician, you can still bring it back, and that's why you only need to play 1 Dark Magician. Following up on that, we do play Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning because it is one of the best monsters in GOAT format, of course. And alongside that, we are running mostly warrior monsters. So we have 3 Blade Knight for the light attribute, 2000 attack, and negating flip effects, just overall a really good card. Breaker the Magical Warrior, good for getting rid of back row, dark monster. If you wanted to go a more janky route, you could also use Apprentice Magician, either in the main or in the side, which is something I tried, but I can never really find when to do it, to be able to put counters on Breaker and on Skilled Dark Magician. If you wanted to make the deck more about fun, you could definitely do that. And of course, filling out the Warrior Suite, we also have a DD Warrior Lady and a Don Zalug, who's especially good with some of the cards that I'll explain in a moment here. And Exiled Force and 1 Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke. I've sort of felt like you almost want 2 because I feel like you want another light attribute in this deck because it's really easy to get dark in the grave, but not light. But I haven't figured out what I would take out because you don't want too many monsters, and a lot of these cards are pretty important. I think the closest thing you could take out is maybe Don Zalug. It feels like with 2 Kaiku, you're already kind of cutting it close with, the turbo matchup, but again, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. And rounding out all of the monsters, we have Tribe Infecting Virus. I want to keep it in the main because you can ditch it, or rather you can ditch a Dark Magician that's dead in your hand for its effect, and helps you pop your opponent's spies, BLS, Chaos Sorcerers, any sort of threat that you need to, of course. Get rid of goats and Thousand Eyes Restrict. And as you can tell, for traps, I'll start off with that because it's very important. You can see that we are running triple Decree in this deck because we want to run a lot of spells to be able to trigger the effect of Skilled Dark Magician to get 3 spell counters. So we have triple Royal Decree. Technically you could main deck some of your good traps for game 1, and then if your opponent seems to be running a lot of traps, put this in from the side in game 2 and 3. I've been trying it out in the main deck. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it because once you get Dark Magician out, you really want to be able to protect it, And having battle traps too in warriors feels really good because you want to be able to get rid of your opponent's monsters. But you could definitely steal games with Royal Decree against a number of decks that are popular right now. But also there's a lot of decks that are also running Royal Decree, so it's kind of dead against those ones. But that's the build that I have here, so I'll go through the spell choices that we have in lieu of the traps. We had Triple Book, which is really good for allowing your Skilled Dark Magician and your Don Zalug to be able to run over your opponent's monsters. We have Delinkquent Duo and Crystal Charity and Pot because they're Trinity and their spells. And of course we have Heavy Storm and MST. Premature Burial to bring back any of our monsters, including Dark Magician that we've had to ditch. And we have the double reinforcement of the army to add our warriors to our hand. Some of the spicier cards, besides No Momentum Crossout, which is kind of normal to have main decked, is we also are running a copy of Rush Recklessly in the deck. You could technically try out 2 copies of this because it's actually rather decent, but it requires you to already have a field presence and your opponent already not have something like BLS on board. So sometimes it's pretty dead, but it's really good for catching the opponent off guard when they try to run over Skilled Dark with something such as a Zumbira or a Blade Knight. And it's also good for getting in damage with Dawn when they're least expecting it, and with Kaiku. It also has funny things you could do with Black Luster Soldier, where you can actually run over the opponent's Black Luster Soldier in attack mode, or get in that last bit of damage that you need, the extra 1400 total damage to win the game. One card that I'm not running, but that works really well with this as well, is a Sure Priest. Perhaps you could try that in the side. I actually haven't ran it, but that might be a good idea. You know, making your Sure Priest a 2400 card that could attack all of your opponent's monsters, that could be pretty powerful. And like I said, you also want lights in this deck, so if you have one on the side, I think that would be pretty good. We're also running 1 Smashing Ground to be able to destroy recruiters, opponents' wall monsters like Spy, and their Black Luster Soldiers and their Chaos Sorcerers, and generally just make it so that we're the ones with monsters and they're not. And of course we have Snatch Steal as well to steal the opponent's monsters. Technically in this deck we can also use them as tribute fodder for Dark Magician if we really need to get rid of it. And we're running 2 Upstart Goblin. Usually I'm not a huge fan of running it in a warrior deck, but it gives you something that you can set to be able to boost Blade Knight. Also, it of course gives counters to your Skilled Dark Magician, and it gets you quicker to Royal Decree. That's the main deck. So moving on to the side deck, this is something that really changes a lot because I'm not 100% sure what you would really side in this deck. This is just some ideas that I had currently. I have 1 Dark Scorpion Cliff the Trap Remover to be able to attack stalling decks using things like Gravity Bind or Level Limit Area B mostly. Mobius to also be able to counter decks that are running a lot of traps alongside Royal Decree. Mystic Swords in level 2, just good against flip decks. I have 2 Zombiris here for when you're up against the matchup of warriors. And I have these brain controls that are really good when you have Royal Decree up, because you can just steal games straight out with brain control, and then you can also sack their monster for your Dark Magician if you already have one on board. Mainly you bring these in though when you are also using Mobius. Oh, one card I forgot in the main deck. Sorry about that. Is one tech card of My Body is a Shield, which is when your opponent activates a spell or trap card or monster effect that destroy monsters, one or more on the field, pay 1500 life points, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. This is good for when you don't have your Royal Decree up yet. You can protect your monsters from Mirror Force, Sakuretsu Armor, Torrential Tribute when your opponent least expects it. You can use it immediately as soon as you draw it, unlike Royal Decree, which you have to wait a turn before you'll be able to flip it. And it can allow you to make aggressive pushes and do things that your opponent thinks that they can easily counter if they don't know that you have this card. I have another one of those in the side deck, but probably you don't need a second one. I think with the decrees, that's about all you need. The other couple cards that this is good against that decree, though, doesn't protect you from is it works on Tribe Infecting Virus, and it works on Exiled Force, and it works on Zaborg. So those are some considerations to have. Also have one copy of Mystic Walk for against the Burn matchup. You already have the Royal Decrees, so alongside Mystic Walk, I think you're pretty much set. Again, Mystic Walk is a spell, and you already have Decree to stop all their traps. So hopefully between those, you're gonna be fine. Have another Smashing Ground for those Recruiter matchups. Again, I don't know if you really need a second one, but that's an idea. Right now I have 3 Curse Seal Forbidden Spell because I run a lot of spells. Lets you stop your opponents from comboing off. You might want to consider using Magic Jammer instead though. This is something that I talked to Delinkquent about a bit because he saw my deck and thought it was pretty cool. So I started talking to him about it and he gave me some suggestions. He said he would rather play something like Spell Canceller, but I prefer Curse Seal or Magic Jammer. But I think in this deck, because you might have the dead Dark Magician in your hand, Magic Jammer might be better than Curse Seal. And against combo decks, they rarely ever have a second or third copy of the card anyway. Only against the very specific kinds of combo decks does it really matter. But anyway, for against decks that are also running Decree, I like to take out Decrees and put it in a Torrential Tribute, because if I'm playing these cards and they're dead anyway, because my opponent doesn't play traps, I might as well have traps for when they don't have Royal Decree, is the way that I look at it. So that's the deck. Let me know what you guys think, what changes you might make. If you think that the deck is cool. I've had mixed results with it. I've won probably 50-50 in duel wise. But I've also been testing out cards, and my side I recently just changed a lot. To be honest, the side was really bad for quite a while. And I'm not the greatest player. I never say that I'm the best or anything. I'm a casual player, so my results are not necessarily the optimal results of this deck. I've definitely made a lot of misplays that shouldn't have lost me the game, because a better player wouldn't have made those decisions. But anyway, how about everyone else tests out the deck and lets me know how the results went, how they like it. And thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.